Please put your hands together for the Honorable Aiyaz Sayed-Khaiyum.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure, Lands and Mineral Resources, Honourable Usumate, the Chair of EFL, Your Excellency, the European Ambassador to Fiji, the board members of EFL, the board members, especially the board members of Sevens Pacific PT Limited, which is in fact a conglomerate between Jugoko and JIBIC, Japanese Investment Bank. Thank you here for your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, all the staff of EFL. It gives me much pleasure to be here this evening for this awards evening. As highlighted by your chair, this is of course a evening of recognition. What it makes it really special tonight, of course, is that you have not been able to have the awards for the past 3 years. So we have a consolidation of all the awards giving tonight. And as the CEO also highlighted, that they have kept track of all the staff who've been contributing over the past 3 years. I was at another performance management awards event, in fact on Friday, at Ports Terminal Limited, where I had said that any organization can invest in technology, they can invest in machinery, but the key component, the key investment they need to make, indeed not any organization, but any country, is in your human resource capital. Because there is somebody that needs to drive the machine, that somebody needs to think about the machine, that somebody that needs to operate the machine. And an organization is as good as the people it has. So critical investment in human capital is utterly important in respect of making sure that organization not only performs, but achieves its optimum level of performance. The Fijian government, as you would have seen, as you would have heard in the budget also, recognizes that. This is why we have made education free from early childhood all the way to year 13. We now have toppers and TELs available for people to attend university. In the recent budget announced, we have special award now for what we call micro-qualifications. We have a huge shortage of people in what we call the technical areas. Some people call it the blue-collar work. There's a huge demand for that. And Fiji, as a result of there being what we call professional preferences change in our regional countries like Australia and New Zealand, we are seeing a lot more attrition, people sort of leaving Fiji because they're offering lucrative jobs. So as a government, we need to continuously invest in that space. And we are not holding back. We will continue to do that. I know a couple of years ago, even last year, at one stage, there's something like 6 or 12 linesmen left EFL for New Zealand. Now, we recognize that. I'm sorry, I've just noticed the Japanese ambassador. Your Excellency, my apologies, I did not recognize you. I did not see in the crowd. But we need to continuously understand as government that we have to invest in those areas. This is why we want to work with organizations like EFL, Water Authority of Fiji, and various other organizations to make sure that we have the right courses available, we have the right amount of resources available for people to be able to tap into those resources to actually get those qualifications. EFL, of course, is an organization where its services has been in demand. Let me just compare that over the COVID period. Fiji Airways was not operational during 2020, 2021. Nobody wanted to fly. Indeed, nobody could fly because borders were all shut down. Many airlines across the world shut down. On the other hand, people still needed electricity. People still needed to be energized. People still needed to have access to electricity in their homes, in their shops, in their factories, if the factories were working. Across the country, people needed access to electricity. Indeed, there was more demand for electricity. People who weren't electrified, those areas weren't electrified, people still wanted to be connected to the EFL grid. So there's a difference between, say, an organization like Fiji Airways and an organization like EFL. Your services were constantly in demand. And notwithstanding the fact we had bubbles, we had lockdowns, you still had to operate in that environment. Of course, thrown into the mix was a few cyclones. I remember doing Cyclone Yasa, visiting Vanuatu, where electrical lines went down twice in one area. Had to put it back up again, fell down again, put it back up again. We saw linesmen working late at night, so people couldn't actually get access to electricity. But at the same time, there was this fear of catching COVID. It's a very strenuous situation. And indeed, this awards night, I'm sure, is going to recognize the conditions in which you worked. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the positive things, your chair actually mentioned this, and I want to mention this again publicly. Previously, many governments ran statutory organizations or allowed statutory organizations or companies in which government had an interest in, they ran it like the little piggy bank. We, as a government, do not have that policy. Previously, when governments, for example, felt that people needed cheap electricity or cheaper electricity, they would not allow EFL to increase their tariff rates, even though EFL had to increase the tariff rates. This is why you had such, what I call shoddy balance sheets, where government did not think outside the box. Today, our approach is different. We allow EFL to operate independently. We allow the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission to be able to regulate the pricing of EFL tariff independently. If we as a government want people who are low-income families to access cheaper electricity, we have to pay EFL for it. There is a difference. If we want low-income families to get cheaper access to electricity, we as a government have to pay EFL. Otherwise, the old way of looking at it was, we want this handful of people or this group of people to get cheaper electricity, so EFL don't increase the tariff rate at all. So those who could afford it also paid the cheaper rates. The businesses who could afford it also paid cheaper rates. And what happened as a result? EFL's balance sheet was completely out of whack. EFL became completely dependent on government. Getting government guarantees. Today, EFL does not get government guarantees. Today, EFL stands on its own 2 feet. Today, if EFL wants to go and make an independent application to FCCC to increase the tariff rates, they can. And they will get that rate increase if it's justified. If government wants low-income families to get cheaper electricity rates, we will come and pay EFL. For the past number of years, that's precisely what we have been doing. All households that earn less than $30,000, we pay 50% of the electricity cost directly to EFL. So EFL must get paid for what it produces. And in that way, EFL can obviously grow. In that way, EFL can embark on adopting technology that is required for the 21st century. We have had 14 cyclones since 2016. We lost 1/3 of the value of our GDP in 36 hours in Cyclone Winston. Some ridiculous amount of cable, I think 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers of cables, somewhere thereabouts, fell down. They had to be put back up. We had to bring in people from overseas, machinery from overseas. Government on a bilateral basis had to talk to Australia and New Zealand. The Tongans came to Fiji to help us put the electrical cables up. When I was 7 years old, there was a cyclone Bibi in 1972. That was one of the biggest cyclones Fiji had ever seen. The next big cyclone, or next cyclone, was 10 years later. Today, we get 3 cyclones in a season on average. If we don't get a cyclone, we think it's such a big deal. That is the hardcore reality of living in the 21st century, where we are at the cold face of climate change. One question that I always ask a lot of people when we go out to have public consultations, and I talk about the 4-lane road that's built in front of Nadi Airport that goes all the way up to Matintar, and it's like a quiz question. I say, what is different about this 4-lane road? And very few people get it. There is no electrical cables overhead. The electrical cables are underground. So next time there's a cyclone, there's nothing to blow down. That is what we would like to see more and more of. And that's what you call building resilience. That, of course, costs a lot more money to put cables underground. Under the Itauke Land Development for a fund that we've set up to develop Itauke land, we recently subdivided land in Sawani, in Warembitia, in Nyandua, and a couple other in Vunda, where we have said, for most of those sites, the original plan had the electrical cables overhead. Today, we're now going back and getting those electrical cables underground. So that subdivision's value increases even more, because people buying it will know my cables won't actually blow away or blow down. The poles won't blow down. And ladies and gentlemen, as EFL staff, I wanted to highlight these issues to you because these are very significant issues, and to demonstrate to you that you are playing a major part in the Fijian government's effort to ensure that we build resilience in our economy. Because when we build resilience in our economy, we become a lot more productive. And when we become a lot more productive, we actually increase the living standards of all Fijians. And that's critically important. Wages can go up. Working conditions can get better. Your company will make more profit. On Friday, when we were at Ports Terminal, it showed that the transshipment has increased year on year by 29%. 29%. Your CEO is actually the chair of Ports Terminal. In other words, more and more overseas people or companies, organizations and countries are seeing Fijian ports as being efficient, that it can transship goods through Suva or Lautoka. Only a few years ago, before the participation of Aitken Spence, if a container came to Suva and Lautoka, the shipping companies charged a levy on each container because the port was so inefficient, they had to spend so much time berthing before the containers got taken down or laden. So you see, we've seen a huge shift. In the same way, EFL has that capacity to not only increase its productivity, its efficiency in Fiji, but EFL, I know, talking to our development partners in multilateral development banks, that they're seeing now EFL as a major regional player. And there's opportunities, actually, for EFL now, in particular with the strategic partner, with partners, I should say, that EFL can actually go and have a footprint in other Pacific Island countries. You'd be surprised at the electricity rates in other Pacific Island countries. We're paying about 33, 34 cents here. Over there, it's about $1.50, $1.40 a unit. So EFL can become a regional player. Please don't just think about yourself as being an organization that's restricted to Fiji, but you're an organization that actually can be a model for other Pacific Island countries. I wish to thank all of you for your participation, for your collaboration, indeed your support for EFL. The EFL, I know staff recently was under the spotlight, some people criticizing, saying they don't deserve it because the electricity cables are down or the electricity is down. Please neglect all those comments. I'm not saying there's no room for improvement, but neglect those comments. People are making political statements. But we know that you have contributed significantly to the Fijian economy. We also know that if EFL does not perform, the many developments that are actually online, and there's about $200 million worth of development at the moment. There's 3 projects between Nandi and Lautoka. Warehouses, factories, showrooms, etc., they'll be built. They all require electricity. And it's our ability to deliver that energy to them which will be critically important. It creates jobs. Please understand what you do creates jobs. Please understand that what you do actually improves somebody's life. The example that I've used continuously, the chair actually highlighted about the extension of the grid. We pay now EFL the extension of the grid. We have to pay you for that. We made budgetary allocations. We spent about $185 million in what is called then rural electrification extension grids. If a person who goes and catches fish, and I'll end up over here, if a person goes and catches fish, and he comes back in the morning or she comes back in the morning They sell fish by the roadside. They know they have to sell the fish by that afternoon because they don't have access to electricity. They don't have a fridge. They don't have a cooler. They don't have a freezer. So they have to sell that fish. They start off by selling a bundle of fish maybe at $50. By the afternoon time, you come along, you know that they have to sell their fish. They'll drop their price to maybe $10 because they have to sell the fish. Otherwise, the fish will rot. And he's probably eaten fish for the past 2 weeks, doesn't want to eat fish again. But if he needs the cash, so he will sell the fish to you for $10 a bundle, or she will sell it to you for $10 a bundle. The moment you connect them to electricity and they're able to get a fridge or a cooler, that person, that villager, can continue to sell that fish at $50. If they don't sell it, they'll take it back to the cooler, they'll cool the fish, they'll bring it out the next morning, $50, put fresh water, you drive by, they say fresh fish for sale, and you'll pay the $50. So you've increased the earning capacity. And that's how much of a difference it makes. There's of course not many areas in Fiji, or some areas in Fiji cannot be connected to the grid. And government of course is working on this independent electricity projects that we have. One way is on a VO island that EFL is also part of. And we continue to urge the board to participate with government in respect of the standalone projects that we are setting up through the Ministry of Energy, or the Department of Energy, Ministry of Economy, and various other organizations. We asked EFL to be part of that. There could also be some prospect of corporate social responsibility in that too. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much once again for helping us achieve one of the objectives of government in terms of achieving our 2050 net zero emissions, and also generally contributing to the growth of the economy. We are set to grow at about 12.4% this year. We had a massive contraction as a result of the COVID pandemic. Government revenue halved by 50%. So now when government revenue is increasing significantly, we'll be doing a lot more extension of connectivity to the grids, to EFL grids. And we look forward to participation in that. I'd like to once again also thank our Japanese partners. Thank you very much. We look forward to innovation, your years of experience in renewable energy. As a country, we're very much committed to that. We have a very young population. 70% of our population is below the age of 40. 65% are below the age of 35. So we have enormous potential. We want to harness that energy, that growth that we can achieve through our human capital. And we'd like to look forward and work with our strategic partners. Ladies and gentlemen, may the best team and the best person win, like your chair said, also your CEO said, but all of you are winners, because those winners, of course, are able to achieve what they have done through your collaboration, through your support. I wish you a very good evening. Naka, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first award this evening, the Employee of the Year, second runner-up for 2019. Congratulations, Tutia Vokula, Team Leader, Contact Center, Customer Services, SBA. Congratulations, Tutia. We congratulate Mr. Anishil Mani, Finance Officer, Finance SBA. The money in the organization. He receives a plaque and $5,000. Congratulations, first runner-up for the year 2021. The winner of this award receives a plaque and $1,000 cash. One more time, the Employee of the Year for 2021 is... Congratulations, Mr. Ashnil Kumar, Substation Coordinator Projects, Network SBA. round of applause for Mr. Ashnil Kumar, Substation Coordinator Projects Network SBA, receives the plaque and $1,000 cash. He is the Employee of the Year for 2021.